And good morning, everybody. It's Friday. I am Bryan Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group, setting up this live stream from a beautiful Colorado day. It's going to be, get this, Joe, low 70s today.
What?
So in typical Colorado fashion, it's going to be a beautiful weekend. It's going to be wonderful weather, and then they're predicting snow on Tuesday. So
It was 9 feet of snow on Tuesday.
Exactly. So I see Renee is joining us. Renee is my assistant, the awesome Renee. Thank you for being here, sir. And if you're new to this, this is the Food Safety Chat Live. And every Friday at this time, so 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, we get together and we talk about all things food safety. And had a really nice compliment this week in the comments. Somebody said, I don't want to divulge her name, but she said, normally food safety stuff is boring, and she put in parentheses, sorry, but it is. But this is one of the few things out there that's actually entertaining and fun, and I learned some stuff. So thank you, right? That's what we're trying to do here, is share this information, and it doesn't have to be dour, according to the standard 7.2.9.2, right? You need to do this type stuff. Food safety needs to be alive. It needs to be part of what you're doing, and it needs to be part of your business. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And so with that, I want to introduce my esteemed guest, Joe Lano, the super CEO of auditing with CFS Food Safety. How you doing today, Joe?
Each time I come on, it gets better and better. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think about this long and hard before this. This morning, I'm eating my breakfast and saying, what title can I give you worthy of Joe this week? Tammy and Austin, good morning, my friends. It's always great to see familiar faces here. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. And if you're new to this, what we do is once a week, a guest joins me and we talk about a new food safety topic. And so hopefully you can pick out some information from here of what's beneficial to your business, right? So it's kind of like reading a book. If you can pick out one good thing, or you can go to a seminar and you pick out one new piece of information and you apply it, fantastic, right? Data that you don't apply is worthless, right? So my charge to everybody who's watching this is take what I'm showing you here today and apply it, right? Just a little bit, just apply a little bit and things will get better, I promise. So before we dive in here, one of the things I wanted to do is to give a shout out to our sponsor, EAS Consulting, wonderful group of consultants who work out of Washington, D.C., people all across the country. I work with EAS, over 100 different individuals with all kinds of different backgrounds and experience. Brian Ravitch on here. I've worked with Brian through EAS in the past. Brian is a veteran of FDA and food safety verification and all kinds of things like that. That's the type of expertise you can get through this group. And with that, you accelerate your progress and you learn and grow, and you put the systems in place so that when Joe with CFS Food Safety comes to audit you, you've got fantastic systems, and that's what you want. So don't struggle alone. Seek out advice and accelerate your growth. And with EAS, they have a discount as part of this webinar, or not this webinar, but this chat, where you can go to easconsultinggroup.com/training. And if you find a course that's helpful for you, they'll give you 15% off, which is awesome. So when you're checking out, just put my name, Bryan, B-R-Y-A-N, as the promo code, and you get 15% off. So can't beat that. Now, one of the things, Joe, you know very well that I like to do is jump into the topic too fast, but I don't do this quick enough, right? So everybody, please join myself. And I bet Joe's gonna be drinking quite a bit of liquid here this morning. Go Jets. And he was doing an audit, and he was in a plant that had like some cayenne pepper, and he sucked a bunch in his lungs. So you'll hear it in his voice. So hopefully I won't make Joe talk too much today.
Or hopefully not. I was doing my Peter Brady impression yesterday, if anybody gets that little reference to pop culture there. So
yeah, probably half the people on this call are like,
who's what? Peter Brady?
Peter Brady, what? Nicole, good morning. Nice to see you. Renee has put the link in the information there for EAS. So thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So today, oh boy, is an interesting topic. And as I was kind of gathering my thoughts around this, Joe, I put a theme on this. And I said, product development is the process that decides your food safety fate.
Yep, no doubt.
Pretty ominous,
absolutely. Right? And I just want to say good morning. I've got a couple of my colleagues on the call here from CFS. So good morning, Aaron and Rich. Whenever my colleagues are on the call, it always raises my blood pressure because they're, it's like when you're doing a presentation and there are people in the room who are smarter than you. It's like a humbling experience. So
yeah, and you're doing your presentation, and all of a sudden they're like crossing their arms and sitting back, exactly. and you're like, uh-oh. Or it's like Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School when he's getting his exam at the end, and the professor who doesn't like him, right? I just have one question for you in 27 parts. Oh. That's another one that people aren't going to get. If you don't know who Rodney Dangerfield is, look him up on YouTube. One of the best one-line comedians out there.
Absolutely. So, what I'd like, and again, pardon my voice, I'm trying to, I did the whole honey and tea thing last night, and I actually didn't talk for like 12 hours, so my wife was thrilled. But so what we want to talk about today is how food safety is directly impacted by R&D. And many times people will feel that they're two separate entities, that they should never rub elbows together. When in fact, as Bryan mentioned, the launch of a new product, and I'm not talking about going from a 10-ounce jar of something to a 12-ounce jar. That's not a new product. A new product is something that's going to impact your process flow, your flow diagram, where you're going to have to resketch it. And there's so many things that can impact your food safety program as a result of changing that process. And that's what I think I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about today, because it really goes unchecked in so many facilities.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key lessons, and by the way, as we're going through this talk here this morning, guys, if you're new, this is meant to be a discussion, right? So if you have questions for us, please put them in the comments so we see them. There's a live feed right next to us, and we'll incorporate them into the conversation. So please do that. Absolutely, right. And so part of this too, right, is the entire organization needs to be involved. And here's part of what I've learned as well, is if one group dominates too much, it throws everything out of whack, right? So for example, if the sales guys in the field, when they're out pitching a new idea to a customer, can promise that and promise a date right there on site, and then bring that back to the company and force the company to hit that date, oh man, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. Because now you're making promises that you may not be able, what's that saying? You're writing checks you
can't cash.
Exactly. And what happens then is the organization gets pushed really hard to do those things, and they may do it once or twice, but mistakes start showing up behind the scenes and things aren't kept up, and eventually it's going to implode. Now, on the other side, quality and other groups inside that are doing the technical pieces and these type of things, if you allow them too much control of the process as well, they could, I'm not saying this is the case, but they could, right, put so many bureaucratic processes in place that nothing moves, right? It could be that, okay, no, this is what we make. We don't make anything else. Trials take 9 years to complete. Well, that's not right either, right? Because companies need to innovate. Companies need to grow. It's an integral part of the business. And you have to build that in and understand that if you're going to be successful managing food safety.
Absolutely. And so many, there have actually been cases where new products have been launched that have gone sideways. And we're not talking about things like the new Coke debacle back in the 80s. That had nothing to do with food safety. It was just a bad product. Right. But we're talking about instances where a manufacturing process has been changed, and many times it'll center around micro, where maybe we've got a new piece of equipment that we've never really worked with before, and we're really not as familiar with how to clean it as we should, right. Or there may be a time temperature thing or a cook thing going on, and we haven't fully developed all of the SSOPs. So it's not just, oh, we're going to launch this new product and, customers are going to love it. Well, they may very well love it, but there's a road to get there. There's a path to get there.
Absolutely. And there's an important little side note on that as well, is just because you think that you're improving, big quotes here, a product doesn't mean that's true, right? And the consumers have a definite idea in their mind of what to expect. And the reason I'm holding up this coffee is, right, I say this, and I've said this several times before in the past on this podcast, is their live stream, is that I have expectations with this cup of coffee. It needs to be at the right temperature. The half and half I put in has to behave in a certain way. The bitterness needs to be a certain level, et cetera, right? And once I dial that in and I pick the right coffee I want, I don't want Starbucks dark roast, blah, right? Burnt, bitter, not for me, right? People obviously love it, but it's not for me. I want a light roast with not a lot of extra chaff from the roasting process in the grounds, et cetera, right? And I know what I want. And when I drink that cup of coffee, every sip I go, okay, good. Yep, I like that. Right. And I've got that. If you mess with that without understanding what I like, oh man, you're in trouble. Right. So let's say you improve that light roast coffee and say, hey, you know what? We need to make the beans smaller so that they have a better flavor release or whatever. And I drink it and I go, whoa, that's different, right? You as a company may think it's better, but as the consumer, I'm the one who decides if it's better or not you, right? And I've seen this time and time again in companies where a group will get together to do a sensory analysis and the senior leadership decides what's good or not. I don't care. I don't care.
Absolutely.
I'm not selling products to you. And as we know within sensory analysis, the ability to taste varies greatly. And I know from my experience, Joe, I've been through taste panels and applied to be part of sensory groups for triangle evaluations. I fail. I don't make it. My sensory abilities are not strong enough for key drivers to be part of that group. Good. I'm glad I know that. Other people are extremely sensitive at sensory. I took a course from Dr. Gail Van Seville at Rutgers, and extraordinary person there. And she's written a couple of books. I think she's still teaching. And she said she could identify at that time, and she says it was growing constantly, over 2,000 different separate sensory attributes in products. Amazing, right? Now, that's also her curse, because she's extremely sensitized to smells and tastes and things like that. So she says when she's in public, she's constantly being inundated by cologne and perfume and these type of things. And the one thing, Joe, she hated the most, I still remember this, cinnamon. The smell of cinnamon was just exceptionally revolting to her, right? It just was absolute onslaught to her senses. So kind of be careful what you wish for, I guess, is that side, right?
And you make a good point about what's acceptable to one may not be the other. I just like within our house, my wife and I have very different tastes in foods.
Absolutely.
And one of the big ones is mushrooms. I like mushrooms.
Same here. I love mushrooms. I had some sauteed mushrooms this morning for breakfast with my sausage and stuff. And my wife, loathes.
Everything is very subjective. So when a product is launched, I think, to your point, you can't just say, oh, well, this person, our grand poobah executive VP of everything really important for R&D says it's good. Well, okay, but you're one of 300 million people who this product is intended for. So, right.
And my earlier comment of who cares sounds rather flip, but it's true from that standpoint. Yeah. And it's very interesting, right? Is we start this very young in life, right? And if a kid doesn't like something, good luck, right? It's going to be a battle until that kid is grown. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is changes, right? So if you have a product and let's say you're marketing it toward children and you tweak it or you change something or whatever, and then that mom gives that drink of milk or whatever to that child, and that child goes, done. It doesn't matter, right? And that 5-year-old brain has done exactly what my 55-year-old brain has done. Same thing, right? They said, this does not meet my expectations. And it doesn't matter at that point what product development improvements, what marketing you do. Mom's not buying that again.
Absolutely.
It's done. So a lot of times with product development too, right? We hear it by different names, right? So there's design control and other things like this, right? Our product development process, all these different type of names, but it's all the kind of the same thing. And what I tried to do here with this is, from my experience, what makes for a good process is, number one, is you have to have a process, right? And part of this is the evolution of a company. Is companies start off as an entrepreneur, right? They come up with this cool idea for a new product. Hey, I'm going to make this coffee alternative and it's going to take over the world. And they begin experimenting and trying different mixtures and flavors and what have you. And something hits, right? And then the company starts going, pshoo, right? And starts doing really, really well. Well, that company then needs to go through a transition, because what an entrepreneur does to develop and hit the right market space and all these type of activities is very different than running a company, right? And so this is why a lot of times when you see, if an entrepreneur continues running a company, a lot of times they implode, because that's their skill set. They want to keep doing that, right? Iterate, come up with new ideas. That doesn't work for manufacturing, right? You need consistency, you need processes. And so a lot of times what will happen then is, a company is successful if they're smart, they'll then bring in a CEO and a VP of operations and the head of quality and things like this, right, for people who understand now how to manage this process. So a lot of times the way I kind of look at it is I'm a visual person, Joe. And the way I think of this, right, is the product development process is the cooking in the kitchen and all these type of things. And they come up and they give samples to consumers and they figure stuff out. And then they say, this is it, right? And they do bench trials and they do scale up trials and all these type of things. But there's a line that gets crossed at some point. And then they hand it to the operational side and they hand it to me. And it's like this little baby, right? And it's like, okay, here's the little baby bird that we created. Take care of it, right? Here's what it needs. Here's what it wants. Here's what it likes. And you need to understand all those things. And it then crosses over that wall, and that's locked, right? Now, at that point in time, that is what is being made, because it all comes back to this, right? My job in quality is, number one, food safety. Don't kill anybody, right? The product always has to be safe. Number two is protecting those quality attributes of the product so it's always the same. And that's hard, because quality never changes in big increments. It's always teeny little. Boop, 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 boop. You know, if we buy a little cheaper chocolate to put in the ice cream, you know, we'll save $2 million a year. Okay. All right. Eventually it comes to a point where that consumer gets that ice cream and tastes it and goes, no, this isn't right. What is this? Right. And then they stop buying, and nobody knows why.
You know, just like when your sales team comes to you and they say, hey, listen, we sold this, we can do it, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of those ones where the blood just kind of drains from your head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, listen, I just sold 4 million, you know, left-handed wind deflectors. We can produce those, right?
Right.
And no, but you've already sold them. You know, similarly with research functions and, you know, commercialization functions, it can't be just the unilateral decision maker. It has to be, you know, we've seen so many examples in all these talks that we've had and through auditing and consulting that, you know, you have to have teams. And I think we spoke last week about the crisis management, that how I will go to a crisis management team member. I'll be like, what's your role? What do you do when the asteroid falls on your roof? How do you... Similarly, there needs to be an R&D commercialization team, and I think that's different from the R&D team. I know nothing about R&D. I know R&D comes up with great ideas, and then somehow we wind up making it. And I don't know. I'm not an entrepreneurial mind. I'm more like a doer. Give me your idea, I'll run it, I'll make you wealthy. But I'm not the idea person. So the chef in the back kitchen and the scientist, they're developing formulas and formulations, and we tweak this. But then it has to come to the commercialization or the realization team. That's where quality and food safety have to have a seat at that table because
Well, absolutely. And I would say it's even earlier because it's human nature. Everybody has ideas and everybody loves their idea, right? Will it hold up, right? And that's why you need to have a process. And one of the best models out there and one of the most consistently followed is StageGate. So you have this big funnel, right? And at the top, you've got this wide entrance to this funnel where all kinds of ideas can come in. And the organization needs to encourage that, right? We need ideas for new products. We need ideas to sell to new customers. We need ideas for product optimization. We need ideas for cost reduction. All these type of ideas come into that funnel. There needs to be a mechanism for sorting those ideas and throwing ones out that aren't going to work as quickly as possible, right? If you work for a cheese company and the sales guys come to you with an awesome idea for a new line of hot dogs, no, what the hell are you doing? We're a cheese company. Go sell cheese.
right.
This is the portfolio. This is what you're here for.
Yep.
So you need to understand that scope of who you are. Part of it too, within that mechanism, is you have to be careful how you set up the criteria, because again, like we know very well, Joe, what you measure gets managed. Right?
Yep.
So if you say in your process, and this came up from real world experience from me early on, was if you say, okay, sales guys, we're only going to consider new products and new ideas that have at least $1 million a year in sales. Guess what? Every idea they bring to you is going to have $1 million in sales.
Right.
Is it true or not? Who knows, right? Sales guys sell. They're selling you, right? So you have to be careful about that. Also, at a previous experience was we were building out these processes, and in this company, the sales and marketing group was pretty strong. And they said, hey, okay, we understand that there needs to be processes and this needs to be we get all that, but, and I'm like, uh-oh, here comes a but. Sometimes ideas are so good and so important that we need to do them right away. And we need to be able to go to the CEO and get his approval and immediately start working on that. Guess what happened with every project? They went to the CEO and went around the program.
Yep.
So if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Yep. And I'm reading some of the comments that are coming in here, and Cortland and Austin raised good points about it has to come from the top and it has to have management culture. I mean, if we look at SQF and BRC, their areas of addressing this use the word shall. And we know from both the consulting side of things and from the auditing side of things that whenever the word shall appears in a standard, there's no wiggle room. Yeah, no, there's just no wiggle room.
Yeah.
Methods and responsibilities for designing, as you can tell, I'm reading, designing and developing new product shall be documented. New product formulations and the fulfillment of product requirements shall be established, validated, and verified. Mm-hmm. And to your point about we're a cheese company that now wants to make hot dogs. Anybody who's ever had me in a facility knows that one of my opening lines in every opening meeting that I do, number one, to kind of break the ice and break the tension, is I say, oh, okay, so you are a bakery, Arm and Trout Bakery Incorporated. Okay, good. So listen, since your last audit, have you begun to are you like farming shrimp on the roof? Or are you maybe growing sprouts in the basement? Or are you conching chocolate in another building? Because businesses will grow and they'll grow, I call it sloppily, if that's even a word, without the vision of what the impact is on food safety. So
100%.
I do it again jokingly to kind of break the ice, and people like, oh, don't give my boss any ideas because he might just want to decide he wants to farm tilapia up on the roof. But if you're a cheese company, be a cheese company. Don't be a cheese company who dabbles in hot dogs. Don't be a hot dog company that dabbles in confectionery. Chocolate covered hot dog is I do like those cheese brats that are on the market. Those are pretty good. But do what you're good at and focus on pre-consumer requirements, handling requirements. And make sure, there are several times when new products, I don't want to say are rushed to market, but when new products are put to market quickly, all of a sudden we realize there's a recall because of the incorrect labeling.
Right.
And
And that's a really good example of, going back to the overall looking at product development is you need to have a stage gate process. You need to have somebody who's responsible for managing that stage gate process. And part of their goal is to be a gatekeeper and make sure that resources are being properly utilized in the company. And a really good way to look at this is swim lanes, right? So you have, all right, this project is going for this timeline, and then we can launch this project at this time. We're going to do this optimization thing here. And then you can look at it through that system and say who's doing what, because part of this is resource allocation. And ideally, and this is a major challenge for companies, and I'm not saying by any means that the companies I've worked with do this well, because it's a constant struggle, is you need at least a 3-year pipeline of different things that you're working on. Because at the end of the day, there's only so many resources, right? I can work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Guess what? That is still a limitation on how much time I can do things.
Right.
And if you push it too far, people can't do things. And there are hard deadlines that you need to look at. So to your example, Joe, so a retailer, right? Retailers all have resets. So once a quarter, every 6 months or whatever, they go and they look at their shelves, and the buyers decide what's selling, what's not, and they kick out the other things and they bring in new stuff. And those dates are set, right? So when the sales guys go in, they say, okay, hey, we want, what things do you want from us? They say, well, we're looking for a new pizza, right? And we need that from you by September, because that's our reset. And if the sales guy says, oh yeah, no problem, we can do that. Wrong answer, right? It's not his decision or her decision.
But the customer's always right, Bryan.
No. Well, it may be that reset, but it may not be the reset this year. Okay, we can do the reset next year, right? Put it in the pipeline, build that out. Another important thing is you need to be able to identify projects that you green light for exploration at that top of that funnel. The ones that are failing, you need to kill those dudes right away.
Absolutely.
Kill them right away. And the organization needs to understand, stop working on this. And if you have a list of priorities, if you have 10 things on this list, 1 through 10 of what are the most important things you're working on, and you have that list and you're working on that and you plug something else in, what's coming off, right?
Yeah.
I can do 5 things well, or I can do 10 things poorly. Which would you like me to do, right?
Right.
Well, the organization is going to say, I want 10 things well. It's like, okay, well, great, we can do that, but now I need additional resources to do that, right? So that needs to be clearly understood in the organization. Part of this too, and if you can't tell, guys, I'm talking from painful experience here, is senior leadership may not understand what you're doing. And odds are they don't understand what you're doing, right? If you're down in the trenches and you're a quality manager working every day, getting the product and things like that, what you're doing, the CEO or the SVP of ops or the super senior auditor like Joe, they don't have a good window into what you're doing. So you always need to explain things and show things in how they understand them, right? So part of it is, and I kind of refer this as a magic black box, right? They know that things are being done for production, and they know that things go in one side and products pop out the other side, and they may or may not have a good understanding of how those things work. The assumption you need to go from is if they're not intimately involved in demonstrating knowledge, they don't understand what's going on.
Right. And
so
I think
part of this is, and I'll finish out this thought, is that what they do understand is leadership and direction. So if you tell the organization in this product design process that it's going to take a year to develop this process, and the program managers and the product managers have it all laid out, and you have your slim lane, here's everybody's working on, and senior leadership says, that's not good. We need to launch this in 6 months. And the organization goes, oh, okay, great. So now all of a sudden it's all hands on deck. And everybody's working weekends and burning the midnight oil and maybe not doing as many trials as they should. And, well, we can check up on the supplier later. Or, hey, do you have the kosher certs? Yeah, I think we have them. Okay, well, that's good enough. Right. And you push and you push and you push and you succeed and you meet that directive from senior leadership. Guess what the new time frame for product launch is now? 6 months, right? Because in the mind of senior management, it takes 6 months. They don't know what you were doing for a year, but now they know that you were sloughing off. And if you can do it in 6 months, that means you can do it in 4 months, right? And they keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
If you think about the pressure that's on companies to not only produce their existing lines of product, but to, when we go grocery shopping, I'm like the label reader, okay? And number one, looking for new clients, okay. Number two, I'm a food nerd. It's just what I do for a living. So, I don't know that there's been a revolutionary idea in the food production world, is a revolutionary new product. I think we've kind of saturated. When I was a kid, you walk down the bread aisle, it was like Sunbeam, Wonder Bread, and maybe Pepperidge Farm. Okay, now the bread aisle is 50 feet long. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid back in the 1800s, there was Coke and Pepsi. It feels like the 1800s today, I will say that. Now the soda aisle is 100 feet long. So I think there aren't any fresh ideas, and this is not a knock. It's reality. So when a company finds a niche product and they're like, wow, this is not in the market, there's this rush, right? You never want to be the last person to market an idea. So to your point about we've taken it from a year down to 6 months, but what cost is that coming at? And it's going to come at the cost of potentially cutting corners. We know the product is being sold frozen, so we won't put the fact on the microwave directions that it has to reach an internal temperature of 185. We won't put that there. And so, so there's so many things and so many potential avenues that corners can be cut, that we forget that because this is a revolutionary new concept, it's a 4.2 ounce something instead of a 4 ounce something. What are we doing on the manufacturing side? Have we run this through a pilot plant? Have we run this through our food safety? Is the plant that's going to be producing this have a say in the matter? I've worked in two facilities where we launched new product that it came down from corporate, and they're like, all right, well, look, see this, here's the formula. When can we have 10,000 cases? And we're like, I don't even know, like, where am I getting the raw materials from? It hasn't even. So in as much as there's this now 6 month push, to get something from concept to the store shelf, slow and steady wins the race. And right. I'd rather maybe not be the first guy to market and maybe be the second guy to market, but I'd rather be the first guy to market with a safe product.
Yep. And yeah, so Wanda, my friend Wanda, was reflecting about what we're talking about having sales and marketing involved in using those guidelines and don't rush it to market. Absolutely. And then Cortland says sales and marketing must help establish expectations. They must participate in design control, right? Product development. And during design reviews, quality oversees the process from compliance, and R&D must meet the expectation. Customer expectations must be documented. Yeah, 100%, right? So which leads into my next area, right? Is that when should quality get involved? I want them on the teams, right? So you have a stage gate process. You have a mechanism in place for selecting projects. You're assigning resources, and I want QA on those teams. Because I want them right away, to your point, Joe, hey, we're going to make this new product and this new process, and we're going to bring this new piece of equipment in the plant, and we're going to do these. And then I want my quality person going, how do we clean that?
Right.
Oh, well, we'll figure that out later.
Now is the time we figure it out.
We need to put that on the list, right? I need to go and visit the equipment manufacturer before we even buy it and ask them those questions. Because as we well know, a lot of times equipment is designed for operation. It's designed for throughput. It's designed for pounds per hour. It's designed for labor, whatever.
Not for
cleaning, right? I see this time and time again, not for cleaning, right? So we need to figure these things out.
Years back, I used to work for Entenmann's Bakery on Long Island, and anytime we'd bring in a new piece of equipment, to their credit, it would never see the production floor until sanitation had reviewed it. And I can tell you, because I got stuck doing it, we would drill holes in the legs of the framework. We would drill holes in the underbody of a conveyor simply to allow for air blowdowns and cleaning, and
Mhm.
to allow for drainage, so we don't have a stagnant, metal leg. We would drill holes in the undersides of the leg, and that's what you have to do. And
Yeah.
that's one of those things that you make a mistake once, and then it reminds you quickly how wrong you are.
Right. So ideally, you need a good way to arrange your functions in this area around quality assurance and food safety is aligning it around the stage gate process. So put a line down the middle and say, all right, here's my team that helps with product development. Right. They're involved in supplier approvals and evaluations and product trials and planned evaluations, possible co-packers that you're going to look at for these products, right? Because if you're looking at a new idea, you're probably going to make it in your plant. You're going to go to somebody else and, all right, let's see if this thing works first before we spend $10 million. And having them up front, right? They gain that intimate knowledge, and the team then can interact, right? And then that quality tech service type group that's part of product development can now go over that wall and explain to the operational quality group, okay, here's what you need to do to maintain this product. Here's the food safety parameters, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the main rules you need to have in place is, until the food safety team at the plant has evaluated and approved this, nothing happens. And that includes R&D trials, because a lot of times the R&D guys aren't thinking in terms of food safety. They're bringing a new allergen into the plant and you don't even know it, right? Mm-hmm. Oh no, this is just a trial. Well, the allergen doesn't care that it's a trial. It's an allergen, right? And you need rules around those trials too. One of the rules I had in place was, if you're doing a trial and you're following all these things I'm talking about, right? Suppliers need to be approved. The food safety team needs to look at it. It needs to be locked down. Is once you produce those samples from that run, what are you using it for? So if it's for internal evaluation, right? It's going to a sensory team, or it's going for a product shoot or something like that. Great, right? Keep that in our control. The second you cross that line and you put it out in the marketplace for samples at Expo West, or you put it in a consumer trial for liking, or things of this nature, that's food now, right? And it has to follow every single rule that you follow for any other product.
And you just stole my next thought, because we go to the PLMA show, right? Or we go to Expo West or the IFT show. When you go to those shows, you need to bring an empty backpack with you because of all the freebies and goodies you get. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's food. And yes, to your point. Now, so there are also plenty of facilities who will donate, R&D samples to their employees. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, is that a great idea? If this is being run as a trial, is that a great, you can have your employees taste it and get an in-house panel. That's one thing. But if you're giving away samples of stuff from an R&D run, and that process hasn't been validated and it hasn't been incorporated into your food safety plan, because that's what this whole chat is about, are you doing any favors by giving away that food for free? So when you're getting those free samples at those shows, as the manufacturer, you have to be sure that your food safety systems have been validated, your food safety plan and your hazard analysis has been revisited before you give that stuff away. This is, if I don't have food up here miraculously, but I go to a show and they're giving away these free, little meat snacks sticks, and it looks like and I bring this home and I eat it and I get violently ill. What has that manufacturer accomplished? This product's dead. If you give away 1,000 of these and 200 people get sick, the product's dead. And then what have we lost? Money. So we need to make sure the stuff that we are giving away is edible.
Exactly. So as part of that design control process, right? So there's a program management product manager, what have you, who's running the show, is helping to manage projects, making sure people are working things, make sure you've got the right people on the teams and these type of things. Another important aspect of food safety on those teams then is the target audience. So let's say the company is a dairy and they're making fluid milks and stuff like this. And the sales guys come back with a great idea of, hey, let's make this new product just for kids, right? We're going to put it in a wacky label and we're going to color the milk green. And, it's going to be this cool thing that sells to kids. Now that quality guy needs to say, okay, so now we're marketing to children, which means we're making products for children. That's a different risk category, right? Yep. We're not talking general population anymore. Now we're talking kids, right? So that applies for kids. Or what if they're targeting schools or nursing homes or hospitals, right, or things like this, right? That's a different risk profile. And the food safety team needs to be aware of that and take that into account. And you're probably going to have to up your controls associated with that.
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with these sensitive audience, and people need to do that. So Cortland's making some good comments here. And must establish design freeze, transfer from R&D to product development, and begin quality by design. Yep, that's what we're talking about. Use design qualifications for equipment. Yep. So there's lots of standards out there, right? So 3A and things like that to help you with those ideas. Goes for the plant too, as a side note. That's why they give away samples there rejects. That's true. So it's always very important for the organization to also schedule in, okay, so new product development is wonderful and it's shiny and everybody gets excited about it, right? This is going to be the next thing that makes $100 million, what have you. Don't forget the other projects you need to work on too. You need to work on, let's say, formulas that don't work well, and quality seeing lots of complaints in the field and things need to be tweaked. That's a project, right? Cost savings, initiatives in the company. This is an important process in companies. And a lot of times the operational group is charged with this, is we need to figure out a way to reduce the cost of manufacturing associated with this. Okay, that's a good thing. It needs to be in the project development process, and resources need to be allocated for that as part of it. Because the QA person on that group that is helping with the green milk is also going to be helping with the cost cutting to find a better source of sugar, right? So you need to always take that into account and have those swim lanes. And that program manager, to the point that Cortland is making as well, is they can only do so much, right? And they only can keep their eyes on so many different things. So they need to be prioritized. You can't do everything.
I like Wanda's comment. I need to have my sales and marketing management listen to this. Well,
you're right, Wanda. Lots of companies need to listen to this.
What is the goal of every business? There's one answer to that question, and there's only one answer. And the goal of every business is to make money. Mm-hmm. Bottom line. So when you think about all of the money that is invested in new product development, there has to have been examples where it goes into the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment. That company and its board of directors and its shareholders are going to want that return quickly. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be that pressure from, we use the word corporate in quotes, but there's always going to be that pressure from corporate to get this sucker out on the market. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is where we, as the food safety nerds of the world, have to push back a little bit. And there are there's case study out there, and we joked before about the new Coke thing back in the 80s. That had nothing to do with food safety. It was a safe product, okay? Mm-hmm. But the consumer backlash that how dare you change, an American icon that has been around since the 1850s, 1860s. I don't know how long it's been around. The research has to be done to be sure that, number one, consumers are actually going to like this product. But we can't lose sight of the fact your sales, and I'm not pointing fingers at any one particular department, your company as a whole, sales, marketing, legal, corporate, the board of nobody can lose sight of the fact that we can have all the consumer research in the world that this thing's going to be, the greatest thing since sliced bread, literally. If it gets on the market and we make somebody sick, it's a dead issue.
Mhm.
And now, at least once it gets to market, it may take a year or so to recoup, get that ROI on all of your investments. But if you kill somebody in the process, or you put some 5-year-old in the hospital, it's done. It's done.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and this is one of the areas in a GFSI audit that I don't think gets the attention it deserves.
Mhm.
One of the questions I ask during an audit is, have you launched any new items since the last audit? And
Ah,
I don't mean, like I said, that you make a 1-pound loaf of bread and it was a 16 slice. Now it's a 20 slice. That's not a new item. It's just a new SKU. All right.
right.
Have you launched, and even if you're making white bread and now you're making whole wheat bread, it's not a new process. Okay. So have you launched a new product that's radically altered your process to the point where you had to modify your flow chart? And if the answer is yes, we're going to spend time going over that. Show me the records of your micro criteria and your what homework have you done? Have you modified your food safety plan? And all
Right.
of this has to come into play.
Exactly. And that's why you want someone like Joe with his experience and expertise coming to audit your systems, because he's going to help you get better. And that's why you want to go through that process with third-party certification and bringing in people to look at these things. They bring a fresh set of eyes looking at those criteria to see if you're meeting those things. Here's kind of the ironic thing of this, and I rail against this in companies. I've ran quality assurance at some pretty large companies. Is there's a false belief that process equals bureaucracy and it slows down product launches. And it's the exact opposite.
Yep.
If you have good processes in place, it's going to speed up your time to market. It's not going to slow it down, because now everybody understands the priorities. Everybody understands the work stream. Everybody understands the key milestones. Everybody understands the launch date, and everybody's marching in order, and everybody understands what they need to do to make that a success. Versus
And
people guessing.
we're living with that right now. And not getting into politics but the COVID vaccine is a good example. It normally takes 5, 7, 8 years to get a vaccine to market. We did this thing in 18 months.
Yeah.
Because we streamline. Right. So it's the same analogy, right? It can be done if we put our heads to it. Listen, we put a man on the moon 50 years ago with technology that was obsolete the week they came home. Okay.
Right.
We can do it. We just have to put our heads to it, have a stream, have a map stream of A to Z, get a team approach. It can be done. This is not difficult. We just sometimes make things more difficult.
Exactly. And so I'll close this out back at the 30,000 foot level with this and this gets back to what we talked about at the beginning, is we are not the determining factor on whether it's a good product or not. The consumer is, right? We can have all the internal navel gazing and evaluations and looking at the rheology and all these type of things with the product. The consumer is the one who judges when you pick up that cup, Joe, whether or not what you drank is good or not. And the better you understand that, the better you're going to be. Quick example to close out. As I worked for a company in the past that had a brilliant, absolutely amazing program that taught me a ton, where they had a quality questionnaire that they would include with the product. And we wouldn't include it with all the products. We would do it on different runs at different times so that we would get a different audience. We didn't need that information all the time. But that questionnaire was just quality. And it would say, on what date did you buy this product? On what date did you first taste this product? And then there was a 3-part scorecard of, okay, was its taste too salty, not salty enough, or just right? And you would go through these questions and then give it a 1 through 5 scale on super awesome product to this is garbage. Right? And there was a section for comments. And the positive comments we got back from our consumers was amazing. And I would post those in the plants. And every week when we put those up, the teams on the floor would go and read those at the bulletin board because they saw the direct reflection of what they were doing. And the important part of this was that feedback from those consumers gave me critical information on making sure I maintained those standards, because I understood the code date. I understood the age of consumption for that product. I knew how old that product was when they first opened it up. I understood what the key defects were that they were concerned about. and I could correlate that to a score. So I had these beautiful graphs that would show 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and then it would drop off a cliff. I'm like, oh, right. And that was at age 80 days or whatever. So then the sales team or the product development team would come and say, hey, if we just had 5 more days of shelf life on this product, we could really cut down our losses and we could be better in distribution. And oh, come on, Bryan, it's not going to make a difference. I would whip that dude out. And I'd be like, okay, here's that 85-day point. Go down on that graph. Can you see what the score of our product is at that point? That's what's going to happen.
Right.
And they'd go, oh, right. I was using consumer information to guide the quality of the product. Super critical, right? Because the bottom line on this, all of this, of everything we're talking about is from a food safety standpoint, when we pick up a cup of coffee or whatever else, the food safety of that product is assumed, right? Here in the US, it's assumed. And when that trust is broken, as we're seeing with infant formula right now, oh man, the backlash, right? Huge, right? You've broken that trust. So you must hit the food safety mark without question. And then you have to understand the quality parameters that the consumer expects. And there's no shortcut to that. You have to figure that out.
And I heard the number once and I don't remember what it is, but I know it's like 10 times harder to get a customer's trust back once you've lost it than to have earned it the first time around. And I forget what the number is, but it's a lot harder, right? So this whole infant formula thing, this is a big deal. I mean, this is a big deal. And there's consumer confidence. It's everything in your business.
Right. And I'm not going to mention the name on this live stream, but everybody on this call knows the name of the company linked to that issue. Yeah. I don't have young children. Most people on this call, may or may not have young children, but regardless, everybody here knows who that company is, and they're going to have a hard time repairing that. Yep. So with that happy note,
woo.
Yeah, we're at time already, Joe. Go ahead. Any other closing thoughts?
So all I can say to wrap it up is anytime your food, I think people underestimate the reach that your food safety plan has in your facility. It's not just about preventive controls or CCPs, or it's not about, is it reasonably likely to occur? Your food safety plan is the heartbeat of your company. Mm-hmm. From the quality side of things. So if anything is going to happen where we're going to change that food safety plan, if we do anything, if we launch a new item that's going to have, you must not forget about what GFSI requires. Here comes the Peter Brady voice. Forget about just make sure that you're doing it properly and diligently.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think this is a good example too of in quality, right? We're technical people and we're comfortable with technical things, right? We like complaints per million pounds. We like audits. These are all things that we can understand. But I think the whole product development process and things like this is the other skill set. If you are going to be successful in quality, that you have to be good at, and that's the people side of things.
Absolutely.
You have to be an effective team member. You have to be able to communicate to the other leadership in the organization, in procurement, R&D, legal, operations, whoever, that these things are important. They have an impact on the business, and I can help you in this group as part of design control, stage gate product development, successfully launch products, right? And that's really important for an organization because we have to grow and we have to innovate. So
without a doubt.
So awesome food safety chat. Thank you, everybody. Amazing comments. Cortland, Wanda, everybody, great feedback, right? Hopefully you're I've kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit with Joe on how important this is to your organization in the company. Super, super critical. So join us next week in April. Wow. So next April 1st for our next food safety chat. And of course, it's going to be here at the same time. And so that's at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, where it's so nice outside. 8 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we'll talk about the next food safety chat. So please bring your cup of coffee, bring your questions, and let's make food safety fun, because it doesn't have to be difficult, right? Just putting these things in place and understanding and being part of the company, it's what we're here for. So I salute everybody for being on this call again. This is a time investment, and you're doing the right thing to help grow and improve what you're doing. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week. So thanks again, Joe. Always awesome having you
Bryan,
on.
my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thanks everybody. Talk to you
Have a
soon.
good weekend.